Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Hiring Manager. Today we have Les Bond with us. Leslie is a former corporate securities attorney turned investment banker. He has co-founded two companies, Columbia Capital Management and Attucks Asset Management, where he is CEO. Leslie has served on several boards, including the National Association of Securities Professionals, the Marshall Falk Foundation, and the Jackie Joyner Kersee Foundation. He earned his BA degree in Public and International Affairs from Princeton as a Woodrow Wilson Scholar, along with his Juris Doctor and Master's degree in Finance and Marketing from Northwestern University. It's so great having you here today, Les.
Oh, thanks, Les. It's good to be here. Thanks for having
We have less and less today. I love it. Can you share more about your background and what led you to transition from being a corporate securities lawyer to starting your own financial services firm?
Sure. Well, to go back to college, I really knew very little about Wall Street, with the exception of sort of the protests that went on at school back in the late 70s against the university having investments in South Africa. And that was really my first exposure to Wall Street, was going to a protest outside of JP Morgan Chase. JP Morgan Chase was managing the portfolio for Princeton University. When I got to my senior year in college, and I was on my way to, I was going to law school. I had always wanted to go to law school. My uncle was a dean at Northwestern, and he said that I could get my MBA from the Kellogg School while I was getting my law degree, and it would only be another year. And so I said, oh, that sounds good, you know. So that was really my first time really studying finance. Was in business school. I had done some work on trade relations in college, but it really wasn't until I got to graduate school that I began to really have some exposure to finance. My my career as a lawyer started out with King and Spalding, where I was an associate, and I worked on some really large corporate securities deals. The initial public offering of Coca-Cola Enterprises, and that's where I had my first real exposure to working with young investment bankers from Solomon Brothers. And I noticed that I was doing a lot more work, and the law firm was doing a lot more structuring of the deal. Um, but they were getting compensated at a whole different level than the lawyers were on those deals. And so I decided to sort of reinvent myself at that time, and go to a different side of the table, and do stuff on the investment banking side. But I had to take a circuitous route to that. So I worked in finance at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange first, and then at the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority as Deputy General Counsel in charge of external finance. So I worked on some bond deals there, and then I got hired in my hometown of St. Louis to do sort of the same thing for the city of St. Louis. And at that point, I was probably 31 years old, and that's when I first started working in investment banking, squarely working in investment banking when I was at George K. Baum. So I didn't have the traditional route to investment management that most people do. I really didn't. I really had never imagined myself as an investment professional. If you had told me that that's what I was going to end up doing when I was 21, I would have thought you were crazy. But here I am, 25 years later, almost 25 years later.
Out of curiosity, like switching from law to investment management and that industry, was there a shock factor to it? Were there a lot of overlapping things in common, or would you say it was like more fast paced? I'm just curious.
Well, I think because of my MBA in finance, I really wasn't intimidated by complex securities transactions or complex financial transactions, um, or the capital markets for that matter, because I practiced as a bond lawyer on the issuer side for a long time. So I look at my experience as a lawyer as being of tremendous benefit to me as an investment professional. All of the ethics and compliance issues are all sort of baked into the practice of law, and so it was very easy for me to slide to another position at the table and feel comfortable with that because I know what the securities laws require, and I know a lot about the ethics and compliance issues that surround investment management in the United States.
Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you started a firm, Columbia Capital Management. I'm curious, what kind of services did or does Columbia Capital Management provide?
Well, Columbia Capital still exists. It was the uh, precursor to Attucks. The first client for Columbia Capital in 1986 was the Treasurer's Office, the City of St. Louis. Larry Williams was the treasurer at the time, and he had known me since I was a teenager. And I had worked with him at City Hall while I was in the controller's office. Um, and so he knew me well enough. He knew my work. He trusted me. He gave me an opportunity to first write the investment policy for the city of St. Louis, and then that expanded into our role as the outside cash manager for the treasurer's office of the city of St. Louis. And so we went from zero to managing $300 million with the assistance of Treasurer Williams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it really I was fortunate to have people who knew me and had worked with me and trusted my work and my judgment. So I started the company with one of my colleagues from George K. Bond, and we worked together for 4 years, and then I met my partner that helped me found Attucks Asset Management, and so I had two companies at one time. It was Columbia and then was Attucks, but then it became very apparent quickly that I was going to have to choose one or the other because my investors wanted to know which one I was spending my time on, and I chose to go the Attucks route, which I've never looked back, never regretted it. But the people at Columbia do very good work, and I'm very proud of the fact that they're still in business even to this day and still doing very well in that space.
Hmm. And when did you mentioned Addicts, when did you start Addicts Asset Management? And I can kind of guess by the name of the firm, but what services does Addicts provide?
Yeah, I started Attucks in August of 2001, and the name Attucks is it's after Crispus Attucks,
Oh,
the urban legend. And in my business, when you get interviewed, they usually do it in alphabetical order. So
yes.
Attucks was great, right? It starts with an A,
That's smart. That's smart.
so that worked. But what we do, uh, and I enjoy every day what it is that we do. When large public pension plans or large institutional investors is what we call them, teachers' pensions, police, fire, public employees, they collectively contribute out of each one of their paychecks to a pension fund, which provides benefits for each of the beneficiaries as they retire, depending on whatever level. And when those pension plans open their doors to investments with newer, smaller, and diverse minority and women-owned investment advisors, they typically will do that through those pension plans will typically make those investments through a multi-manager fund like mine because the firms are so small that they can't really take a full allocation from the institutional investor. So they make that investment through us, and then we make investments to other firms, and we split the fees with those other firms. We help them develop their companies and help them with their business plans, with their purchases of the insurance that's necessary, with their marketing plans, all of those things. And so we're very much value added to the managers that we work with because of our understanding of the institutional marketplace. And then we also function as an extension of staff for the pension plans because they don't really have the ability to cover the smaller, newer managers that we work with.
Hmm.
Uh, we do something in excess of 200 manager meetings a year, even with firms that haven't even started. So we're helping people and women and men who are starting firms and giving them that opportunity while at the same time helping our clients meet their fiduciary responsibilities in making investments like that.
Hmm. Very interesting. What you just described that you're doing with Attucks, has that been the focus during the, I guess, 20 plus years that Attucks has been around?
We've evolved from very broad mandates to much more focused strategies in less efficient markets. So we're very much different in terms of our focus on our manager research, but it's been a great evolution because I think there's more opportunity for emerging managers in today's investment environment.
Nice, nice. And on your website, I thought it was a great and cool video about the 2023 Attucks Summer Conference. What was
Yes.
the purpose of this conference?
Well, it was at a point in the market where there were a lot of things going on. So we thought it would be a good idea to bring together the managers that we work with. We work actively with 42 managers in 16 different portfolios. We have 13 clients, approximately $4 billion under management. We thought it would be a good idea to bring our investors together with our managers
Hmm.
and to talk about some of the things, some of the trends that we could see on Wall Street, and let them get to know each other, and because we they see us, the investors see us, the managers see us, but they don't see each other all the time.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, okay, well let's bring the managers with the best ideas to have an audience in front of our investors and let them exchange ideas and ask questions of each other to really try to get to know each other on a personal level. Um, I've always been a believer that people invest with people and not with companies. So it should have been an advantage for our managers to meet our investors and to have a chance to dialogue with them and to present themselves without us being in the way.
Absolutely. I love that. As you mentioned, like bridging those two, the investors and the manager, and kind of having a think tank too. I mean, those personal connections and then
Mhm.
discussing ideas. That's great. That's wonderful. And
Yeah.
Addicts is known for its diverse team. Can you talk more about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your firm's culture and approach?
Yeah, we are very much a believer in diversity of thought. We think that you get better outcomes when you have a more diverse group of decision makers as it relates to investing. And so we eat our own cooking, and we've been very fortunate to have found some great talent from very different places, from places all over the world, from different sort of schools, from different backgrounds, um, and so we practice what we preach. We are very firmly of the mind that this is something that's beneficial to our investors, and so it's a difficult time, I think, for some of the, let's say, social impact driven approaches to investing. I think it sort of happened a little bit too fast. So the ESG efforts, they weren't very well defined, and because it had a negative impact on the performance of the stocks of some energy companies, those energy companies pushed back with the introduction of legislation to prohibit investing with an ESG overlay.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I think as long as it's not being presented as a, I guess, a conclusion, that this is the better way to go about investing, and more of this is a way of thinking differently about making investments, um,
Sure.
and not the only way to make investments. I think Europe is a little bit more advanced in that respect than the United States is, and ESG is thriving in Europe, but here it's almost become demonized uh,
Mm.
because so many people rushed to offer ESG products, and really not define what it is that their view of environmental, social, and governance overlays are in their investment process. They just wanted to get something out there. But now I think the market has sort of lashed back, and you see the SEC taking action against some firms that were just a little too loose about their ESG approaches. But I think it's something that's here to stay, like cryptocurrency. But I just think that we have to talk about it in a different way. You can't just slap that ESG label on your investment process and not have to do a deep dive on what it is that you're really trying to accomplish with that overlay. My focus is not really the environmental or the governance thing. It's the S, it's in the middle.
Yes.
Um, and I think what we look for is to be able to be have a good definition of what it is we're trying to accomplish with diversity of thought as it relates to investment decisions, and to communicate that and demonstrate that in our performance with our clients.
I like that. And I like that you also mentioned the I know that you focus on, like you said, the S and the ESG, and that you focus on also diversity of thought, which kind of begs me to ask the question. I know that when people say like DEI, for example, that
Mhm.
I feel like most people think about it as the lens of having culturally diverse environments, and speaking to that kind of cultural inclusivity. Do you feel that there are competitive or economic advantages resulting from a company either having diverse employees or engaging in DEI initiatives?
Oh, very much so, especially in this industry, because you just uh, what we suffer from in our industry is homophily, and that is the tendency of people to gravitate toward others that are like them. What you don't get when you suffer from that is people thinking differently or challenging the assumptions that are underlying your investment approach.
Mm.
And it's very difficult to change that because it's such a competitive industry. But we've had numerous studies that have been done, particularly in venture capital, as it relates to the positive returns that are generated by firms that are diverse. There's also research that shows that women-owned bond firms outperform their bulge bracket, all pale steel and male, Wall Street competitors.
Yeah.
So the research exists to demonstrate it, and then for us, our returns demonstrate that. And so I understand what it is that's necessary for us to be able to make this assertion. I mean, you can't make that assertion and not be able to back it up with your own performance, and you can't make broad stroke assertions about what benefit there is to investing with a lens of diversity without having research to back that up as well. I mean, and so I can only say, I understand that this is a performance industry and that we have to deliver performance, and that you shouldn't make decisions just on the basis of being a member of someone being a member of a protected class. But you shouldn't exclude them because they're members of a protected class either.
Sure. No, absolutely. I agree. And as you mentioned, if the performance is showing, right, then
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and I think the
important.
other thing that we suffer from is that there's such a high concentration of assets in the hands of a few. There's something like 70 trillion um, assets and under management out there. And black firms only manage less than 1.5% of that money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's not a very good picture. It doesn't paint a very good picture of what goes on. But it's not so much black versus white firms as it is huge, gigantic firms versus smaller
Mm,
firms. And so the drumbeat starts with giving firms an opportunity to compete for that business without having these very high thresholds, which by rule excludes a lot of very talented investment firms that are smaller.
yes. Thanks for mentioning that. It kind of shows that big disparity when you see those stats.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks for kind of shedding some light on that as well. And
Yeah.
switching gears for a minute, of course, given what I do and the name of the podcast, I'm of course going to ask a few hiring related questions, of course. So the first is, over the course of your career, what roles have you hired for?
Most of the folks that work at Attucks over the years have been on the investment staff. I mean, we lean on technology a great deal, but I would say 90% of our folks are on the investment team. We have one dedicated administrative person in operations, the chief operations officer, that works very closely with me. And so I spend probably anywhere from one third to one half of my time dealing with the operations of the firm. We're a very pro compliance firm, so the chief operating officer and myself, work very hard on the compliance aspects of the firm. And that's a big part of any institutional investment management firm is compliance. Not only our compliance, but making sure that our underlying managers are also practicing healthy and robust compliance functions. My hiring has been 90% in the area of investment professionals, and it's tiered. You come in as an analyst, and very traditional. Uh, you come in as an analyst, and you're doing the work for the vice presidents. The next level is vice president, senior vice president, and then managing director, um, and then head of equities, head of fixed income, and then myself. But we're still very much a flat organization because even though there are tiers of assignments in the firm, we all work together. We all make decisions together. We don't have a star chamber when it comes to making decisions about what firms we're going to invest in. We always are gathering together in total to sort of go through the presentation of a manager and going through our research and trying to make a decision about which ones of the managers we're going to invest in and which ones we're not going to invest in, or which ones we're going to fire. So we include everybody. It's a very much teaching institution,
Hmm.
and so we've had a lot of success with bringing people in from summer interns into our analyst roles.
Okay. Interesting. And then, out of curiosity, what attributes do you and your team look for in, let's say, an analyst versus a higher role such as managing director or SVP, for example?
Yeah, as I said, technology plays a very important role in what it is that we do. We spend a lot of money on commercially available databases and CRM software, Bloomberg. And so a technology background is a must.
Hmm.
You just can't get around it. Uh, because the most important thing that we do on a quarterly basis is to produce reports, and that's a very much technology driven assignment. We don't hold the assets of our clients. The assets are held by custodial banks, And so we have to interact and interface with the feeds that we get from the custodial banks, and we have to reconcile that with the managers. And so we go through this exercise every 3 months. Well, actually every month, but on a much larger scale, much more analytical scale, every 3 months, and then annually for our clients. And so we've been looking to try to find the best and the brightest that bring those technical skills to bear for us in our hiring decisions.
That's great. Yeah, technology, as you know, is so important nowadays. I mean, in the financial sector, fintech, AI in every sector is becoming so prominent. So
Yes, that's becoming more and more a part of what it is that we do.
yes, yes. And what are some questions that you may ask a potential member of your investment team in that interview process during an interview?
Yeah, one thing about Addicts is our culture is very important. It's a very collegial place. People have to work together. We work in teams as far as how we execute business for our clients. So it's a place where we want to know who the people are that we're hiring. It's great that they might have great grades and they might know how to manipulate certain software programs, but we really want to understand their background, and we want to see and embrace the diversity of backgrounds. Like, do it. We don't all want to look the same. We don't hire from one school all the time. We all went to different schools. I mean, there's some schools that are overrepresented, but just because we're in Chicago and our interns a lot of them come from Lake Forest, and a lot of our senior people went to Kellogg. But of course, I have my own bias. Uh, but really, what we're looking for people who can fit in, people who are self starters but not obnoxious, who are not who can do well in a team structure, and not feel like they're smarter than everybody else. Um, my father used to tell me all the time, son, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So like I don't have any problems working with people who I consider to be smarter than me. My chosen my partners the same way. It doesn't make sense to have a partner who's just like me that does the same things that I do. So you're looking for people who are going to bring a different perspective, but also are going to bring the ability to work across different backgrounds. We like to hire people, from our internship programs, because it gives us a chance to really see them for 3 or 4 months, and then to decide whether or not we want to make an offer to them to continue. We do internships during the year, if it's comfortable, if it makes sense. It doesn't make sense if they can't come into the office. Um,
Sure.
you're not going to really get to know somebody initially, by working with them remotely. Um, at least not at the lower tier of hiring. So the culture is very important, and maintaining that culture um, is very important. People tend to come and work at Addicts and then they don't leave.
Mhm.
The average tenure for people working at Addicts is above 7 years,
Oh,
which is,
that's great.
yeah, it's incredible in these days and
Especially,
times.
I was about to say, especially nowadays where you have like
Yes,
two
yes,
years and done, if that, for a lot of
yeah.
younger applicants. Or yes,
It's
yes,
been a little different lately. It's been a little harder to retain younger people, but we
yes.
still, we still have um, a high number of years on average of people at Addicts.
That's really wonderful. Very, very
Mhm.
wonderful. And I'm curious too a little bit more about the intern program because I think that's great that you have it from the vantage point of uh, you obviously being CEO and as you mentioned, getting to know more of who the intern is before they continue on working with addicts, if that's the route that they go or the route that you obviously have a large part in determining as well. And for, you mentioned it, the intern program, they're in the office, it's in person, and it goes on through the year. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? I guess I'm assuming the intern programs for a lot of people that are going towards finishing up their either MBA or their college degree. Feel free to give more background.
Actually, in college, we've had interns that are rising sophomores. Um, we've had interns that are have been in MBA programs, um, and so I mean, people who are either in college or in grad school. We have 3 days in office a week in the Chicago office, and so we look for people who can get into the office, and we don't. Our interns are not people that just answer the phone and get coffee.
I was going to ask, what do your interns do?
Yeah, no, we are they're interns for us to see whether or not they can make it.
Mm,
And so we have lots of work for them to do. They're going to have to go through some training, but I mean that's the benefit that they get from working for us. We pay all of our interns
great.
um, $15 an hour. I think is where we
Yes.
are now, uh, maybe more. Um, and we like for them to have a finance background, but that's not an absolute deal killer. But we've had some come from engineering.
Hmm.
So we're very open minded about it, but it's not just us, bringing people in to do grunt work.
Yes, good to know. That's good to
Yeah,
know. For any
yeah,
interns out there interested in the in
yes,
sector, I think that's awesome that you have that intern program and really get them in hands-on as well. So great. What are some pros and cons in your opinions of an applicant's resume?
Well, the pros are excellent grades, depth of exposure to finance, a demonstration of a commitment to activities in one's communities. Athletics is important to the extent that we're looking for a work life balance, right? We're not looking for somebody who's just stuck in front of a screen all the time. Um, we have a lot of fun at Addicts. We don't spend a whole lot of time with each other outside of the office, but we try to do things together outside of the office. So we want to see in a resume, somebody who can get along with other people, that whatever form or shape that takes. We want to make sure that we're getting people that know how to get along with others, know how to have some fun, and um, that it isn't, like being a portfolio manager is not everything in the world for these people. It should be important, but this isn't a place for, we're not a star system. So we're not really looking for somebody who doesn't work well with other people and whose expectations are realistic. You're not going to be a portfolio manager in 3 years. Nobody's after 3 years is not long enough for you to know how to run a multi-manager portfolio. Um, and you have to be able to do some grunt work. So we're looking for people who have some blue collar background sometimes. I'm not saying that you have to have that. I mean, but something that adds an element of humility to what it is that their lives are about. We've had young people come from, very affluent backgrounds. Um, I'm from an affluent background myself, so I don't want to hate. But I mean, it's we want to have a wide cross section. But mostly, we want to make sure that what we see in a resume is a well-rounded human being, right? With a track record of success in school and a track record of working with people over a long period of time.
I like that. And kudos because I do feel that, of course, everyone, pretty much all individuals hiring or looking for applicants are, of course, looking for, as you mentioned, good grades, showing value, et cetera, in their performance. But I feel that not all, or maybe not even most, people that are hiring are necessarily attracted to the balance in an individual and a work-life balance. So kudos to you. I had another hiring manager on about a year ago that's in IT, and he also mentioned looking for like well-rounded individuals as he felt that his firm, as I'm sure that you feel the same way about Attucks, is like a family. And work is important, very much. Being able to perform is important, but as you mentioned, able to get along, work well with others, having other things are important in that person's life to achieve a work-life balance. And I feel that that's maybe not as common to hear from someone hiring. So I think that's great because I'm all about, the work-life balance too. So that's nice to hear from someone who has their own company and who's looking for that in an applicant too.
Yes.
Yeah. So although I love resume writing, if I ever if I ever make a shift, it sounds like a great place to work. So that's amazing that you built that type of environment too.
Yeah, it's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. What advice, kind of on that wheelhouse, what advice would you give to someone interested in pursuing a career in the financial services industry?
Well, um, I think that what people have to decide is where do they want to go? I mean, it's such a huge
Yeah,
industry.
it is.
Finance, like law, touches everything, and so investment management, of course, is something that's been reviled of late because of the excesses of the hedge fund managers and the fact that we really don't create anything other than wealth for ourselves and for our investors. But there's so much more to finance and investment than just becoming rich. My focus now, after 25 years of being in business, is to try to find a way to bring capital to communities that have been historically shut out from access to capital. And so I think people have to look at the capital markets as a way to develop ideas, and that your approach should be, how do I take the knowledge of how the capital markets work and put that to work in a way that creates opportunities for people that have not had opportunities from less fortunate backgrounds. So I just think that it's important for us to remember that it's not all about getting wealthy, particularly in a lot of communities of color in the United States. There's a huge need for financial literacy. We tend to have it, well, we not tend, we do have a huge wealth gap that exists between people of color and the majority of Americans. And we've got to sort of try to close that some way. So a career in finance is not incompatible with a career that's dedicated to trying to do good
Hmm.
and do well at the same time. So I think that individuals who are looking for something to do, this really has been a wonderful career for me. I wish I had known more about it when I was younger and just not had the attitude, that people that work on Wall Street are just, self-centered and focused on only on themselves and their wealth. I've had the greatest opportunity to be able to create new businesses and help people to provide jobs for people of color and people from less fortunate backgrounds. And so I have nothing but great things to say about the investment management community, other than the fact that there's just not enough of us. in the business, and there's not enough attention paid to our communities as a source of new ideas and the creation of wealth in our country.
Yes. I like that thanks for that. And I like that you do mention the good things that one, even in investment management services, can do in the community. Because, as you mentioned, I think there is sometimes, I guess I'll say, stigma or perception that if you're on Wall Street or if you're in that industry, it's all about money and game. But there are very good things, as you mentioned, that one can do in the industry, and you and Attucks is doing that. So that's amazing.
Thank you, thank you.
Where do you see Attucks headed in the next 3 to 5 years, or what are some of your key priorities and goals for the firm going forward?
Yeah, I think we want to be able to offer private market investment strategies to our client base. We're right now as they say in a business, we're long only. So we don't have alternative assets under management right now, but we want to have alternative assets. And one of those strategies is to do an affordable housing fund of funds. They're great returns for investments in affordable housing, and it's something that is needed in red states and blue states, from north to south, east to west. We really have to figure out how to bring capital to bear on the housing market in the United States. And so I'm working very hard to try to bring that to the marketplace. And as I said, we have other strategies that we want to bring into the alternative asset management space. So that's keeping me really busy, trying to keep up with fintech and artificial intelligence and the effect that it's going to have on our industry. I mean, it's a very exciting time, but it's really like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Mm, yes, I know. I know. There's so much, especially with AI and all of that. Are you currently hiring at Attucks?
We don't have any job openings, but we're always looking to hire at Addicts. We're always looking to meet people and talk to them. I think it's always better to have as much time as possible to be able to get to know somebody. We really don't hire people. It usually takes 6 months for us to hire someone at a vice president level because we want to get to know them and we want to see it. We want to make sure that they're going to be a good fit for our firm. So even though we don't have any job openings right now, we're always looking to find good people.
Love it. Love it. And
Yeah.
is there any additional advice you would like to provide to job seekers?
You know, do what you love to do. The money will come. I kind of followed my own heart as I've been on this journey. And as I said, I didn't start out trying to find a map to Wall Street. I just started out trying to find a way to do interesting things and to have some fun and make some money.
Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. I second that. I think it's really important to do something that you love. If you love it, you'll cultivate that skill in it. That's like you said, the money will come. So great.
Yeah.
I've unless there's anything more you wanted to add, I've really enjoyed having you as my guest today. You added such value to job seekers in general, and especially those in finance, looking to get into the sector in the investment management world as well. So thank you so much, Les. I really,
Thanks for inviting me, Les.
yes, yes,
Covered it all.
yes, less and less. I know. I really enjoyed it, and of course, thanks to all of our viewers out there. And stay tuned for another episode of Ask the Hiring Manager. Bye, everyone. Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager. I'm Leslie Hunter, president of Resume Makeover. I've been helping job seekers for nearly a decade to acquire their dream jobs and achieve the income they desire, from entry-level applicants to C-suite executives and everyone in between. From your resume to your cover letter, LinkedIn profile, bio, or website content, I'm here for you. And now I'm going to open the door and interview some of the top hiring managers so that you can have the insight that you need to book the jobs that you want. Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager.